Have you ever sat on your comfortable couch on a quiet Friday night, opened up your laptop and bought something online with a single easy click, and then immediately grabbed your remote control to seamlessly stream a high-definition movie directly to your television screen without ever leaving your living room? We take these absolute modern digital miracles for granted. Every single day of our lives, we naturally assume that brilliant engineers in Silicon Valley or fancy traditional bankers on Wall Street carefully designed all of the financial and technological systems that make our modern digital world function smoothly. But what if I told you that the incredibly complex payment infrastructure that allows you to buy a book on Amazon or pay for your monthly Netflix subscription was actually pioneered by an entirely different industry? What if I told you that the actual foundation of modern digital capitalism and the modern American dream was completely mathematically built by the adult entertainment industry? It sounds absolutely wild and almost impossible to believe. But it is one of the most fascinating and completely overlooked chapters in all of modern financial history. Welcome back to Money's Hidden Past, where we always look past the complicated corporate jargon and figure out how the global economy really actually works in our everyday lives today. We're looking very closely at how pornography did not just passively participate in American capitalism, but how it actively, repeatedly built the absolute essential financial and technological rails that all of modern digital commerce completely runs on today. We're going to gently break down 4 massive historical pivots that turned an underground taboo industry into a multi-billion-dollar financial juggernaut and the ultimate digital archetype of the modern American dream. And we will explore how this industry converted human intimacy into a massive scalable digital asset class. But before we jump into the fascinating history and explore this wild digital world together, please do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button right now. Leave a friendly comment down below and let me know if you are surprised to hear that the adult industry actually helped build the modern internet. Your support truly means the world to me, and it helps this video reach more people who might find this honest historical conversation helpful and eye-opening. Let us rewind the clock all the way back to the late 1970s and the early 1980s to completely understand where this massive financial story truly begins. Imagine walking into an electronics store back then to buy your very first home video cassette player. You were basically faced with a massive corporate battle between 2 giant Japanese technology companies fighting for control of your living room. On one side, you had Sony offering a machine called Betamax, which was widely considered to be mathematically and technologically superior in almost every single way. It had better picture quality, it had better sound, and it was a beautifully engineered machine. On the other side, you had JVC offering a machine called VHS, which was slightly lower quality but much cheaper to physically manufacture. In a normal rational free market, the better technology almost always completely wins the race. But Sony made one incredibly massive corporate public relations decision that completely changed the entire course of global technological history. Sony absolutely refused to allow adult entertainment companies to publish content on their Betamax tapes because they wanted to protect their family-friendly corporate brand image. JVCs, on the other hand, took a completely different approach and decided they simply did not care what people put on their VHS tapes, as long as they were buying the physical machines. And that single corporate decision mathematically handed the entire home entertainment industry over to VHS. Ordinary everyday people were incredibly eager to buy adult content that they could watch in the total absolute privacy of their own comfortable living rooms, instead of going to a shady public theater. The massive, overwhelming consumer demand for adult videos completely drove the initial widespread adoption of the VHS player in American households. Ordinary people bought the VHS machine specifically for the adult content, and then later started buying regular Hollywood movies because they already had the machine sitting in their living room. This massive early cash flow from adult video sales and rentals literally provided the core financial foundation that established the massive global home video entertainment industry we know today, and it also completely changed the underlying economics for the creators. Before magnetic VHS tape filming anything, it required highly expensive celluloid film, massive professional cameras, and huge corporate distribution networks. But cheap magnetic tape drastically lowered the massive barrier to entry. Suddenly, small independent production companies could grab a cheap camera shoot of video and physically mail it directly to consumers, completely bypassing the massive traditional Hollywood gatekeepers. It was the absolute very first early spark of the decentralized creator economy. Now let us fast forward a little bit to the massive technological explosion of the 1990s and the early 2000s. When the internet first became available to the general public, it was an incredibly messy and highly confusing place. Traditional retail companies like Sears and Walmart absolutely completely struggled to figure out how to successfully make money on this new digital frontier. People were absolutely terrified of putting their physical credit card numbers into a computer screen because the security was terrible and fraud was completely rampant. Traditional massive banking institutions absolutely refused to touch internet transactions because they viewed the entire World Wide Web as a massive, unyielding financial risk. But the adult entertainment industry did not have the luxury of waiting for the big banks to figure it all out. They had millions of customers who wanted digital content right that exact second, and they needed a way to safely process the money. So they stepped up and practically invented the modern architecture of e-commerce out of sheer financial necessity. They worked incredibly closely with software engineers to pioneer the architecture for high-risk merchant banking accounts. They were among the absolute very first industries to fully successfully implement real-time credit card processing and utilize secure socket layer encryption, which is that little comforting padlock icon you see at the top of your web browser today. They basically proved to the global banking system that you could safely process massive volumes of financial transactions over a basic internet connection without everyone getting completely robbed. And perhaps, most importantly, they completely pioneered and perfected the automated recurring monthly subscription billing model years before software companies or massive streaming services ever thought about charging you a smooth recurring fee. Every 30 days, the adult industry was already mathematically processing millions of automated monthly digital subscriptions. They built the exact financial rails that companies like Netflix, Amazon, and Spotify completely rely on today. But getting the money was only half of the digital battle. They also had to actually deliver the product in the early days of the internet. Downloading a single photograph took several minutes, and streaming a video was considered mathematically impossible over basic dial-up connections. The adult industry had a massive financial incentive to solve this massive technical problem. So they aggressively funded and helped commercialize highly advanced video compression codecs designed to shrink massive video files into tiny manageable packages, and they were among the very first digital pioneers to build and utilize massive content delivery networks all over the globe. They essentially built the incredibly complex hidden physical plumbing of the internet, creating systems to efficiently stream video over early broadband connections without constantly freezing or buffering. The next time you watch a beautiful high-definition movie on your smartphone while riding the bus, you are directly utilizing the specific compression technologies that were originally funded and perfected by the adult entertainment industry. As we moved into the late 2000s and early 2010s, the internet completely shifted again. And the adult industry was violently forced to adapt to a massive structural change in human behavior. This was the era of the great free content explosion often called the tube shift. Massive user-generated video platforms launched and completely altered the global demand curve overnight. Suddenly, ordinary working-class consumers realized they absolutely no longer needed to pay $20 or $30 for a premium digital subscription, when they could easily find millions of free videos on ad-supported websites. This massive psychological shift completely destroyed the traditional high-margin direct sales business model that the industry had relied on for decades. They were brutally forced to transition from selling high-priced premium products to operating a massive, high-volume, incredibly low-margin advertising model. This is where the deep, hidden math of Wall Street and private equity really aggressively stepped into the shadows as the individual production studios started to financially collapse because they could no longer sell premium subscriptions. Massive, shadowy holding companies quietly swooped in huge corporate conglomerates like MindGeek, which was later rebranded as ALO, began aggressively acquiring everything in sight. They absolutely did not just buy the struggling production studios. They bought the massive free hosting networks, the digital distribution channels, and the underlying advertising technology platforms, all at the exact same time. They essentially built a massive, perfectly vertically integrated digital monopoly operating completely out of the public eye. They realized that in the modern free internet, the actual product was no longer the video itself. The true product was the absolute massive scale of human attention. By completely controlling all of the major free websites, they could easily capture billions of page views every single month and monetize that massive, unyielding attention through highly optimized targeted digital advertising. It was a brilliant and utterly ruthless corporate consolidation of power. They created the absolute perfect illusion of digital choice. A regular consumer might click through 5 or 6 completely different websites, thinking they're exploring a vast, competitive open market. But the hidden financial reality was that almost all of those sites were quietly owned and operated by the exact same massive parent company, funneling all of the advertising revenue back into the exact same corporate treasury. They completely corporatized human intimacy on an industrial global scale, transforming it into a highly efficient, massive behavioral data farm. But the internet is always evolving. And over the last few years, we have witnessed the fourth massive structural pivot in this incredibly fascinating economic history. As we entered the 2020s, a massive new wave of technology completely disrupted the massive corporate monopolies, giving birth to the modern creator economy, direct-to-consumer capitalism. Platforms like OnlyFans absolutely fundamentally changed the mathematical rules of the game by completely bypassing the massive corporate middlemen. Instead of a creator working for a giant studio and taking home a tiny fraction of the profits, while a billionaire collects the rest, the new digital model completely decentralized the distribution. It mathematically allowed individual everyday creators to capture up to a massive 80% of the revenue generated by their fans through direct monthly subscriptions, customized pay-per-view, messages, and generous digital tips. This new direct-to-consumer model is completely fascinating because it has essentially entirely repackaged the core fundamental promise of the original American dream. The beautiful traditional American dream was always built on the beautiful idea of individual ownership, complete self-reliance, and the promise of upward financial mobility for the hard-working average citizen. The modern adult creator economy took those exact same traditional historical ideals and perfectly translated them into a massive digital gig economy. Today, millions of exhausted working-class people see these platforms as the absolute ultimate solopreneur business model. They act as their own marketing department, their own highly skilled financial chief, their own talented production crew, and their own customer service representatives. They are completely desperately trying to build price and personally monetize their own individual brand equity in a massive, incredibly competitive digital marketplace. They are fighting against complex algorithms, dealing with massive psychological burnout, and carrying all of the heavy personal and societal risk completely on their own shoulders. It is the absolute most distilled, completely raw version of modern capitalism that currently exists on the internet. It completely strips away all of the massive corporate safety nets and leaves the individual worker alone to either completely succeed and make millions, or entirely fail and make absolutely nothing. We covered the dark math and the incredibly harsh realities of how the platforms actually extract massive wealth from these creators in our previous conversations, but it is still absolutely critical to completely understand why this specific economic model feels so incredibly appealing to millions of everyday hardworking people who are just trying to find a way to survive in a wildly expensive modern world when you completely step back and look at the massive sweeping arc of this entire history. The takeaway is absolutely undeniably clear. The adult entertainment industry did not just exist quietly alongside American business history. It actively forced American business history to aggressively evolve by completely converting human intimacy into a highly profitable, massive, scalable digital asset class. They were mathematically forced to solve the hardest technical problems of the early digital age. They brilliantly pioneered the secure, complex payment technology that keeps your money safe today. They completely funded the global streaming infrastructure that delivers your favorite shows, and they perfectly mapped out the highly effective direct-to-consumer monetization strategies that define almost all of modern e-commerce. The absolute next time you quickly buy something online with a saved credit card or seamlessly stream a beautiful high-definition video on your smart TV, just gently remember that the invisible, highly complex digital rails carrying that data were completely forged decades ago by an underground industry fighting to survive on the fringes of the modern economy. It is a massive, beautiful, terrifying, and incredibly complex financial history that the mainstream corporate world desperately wants you to completely ignore and forget. If you found this friendly and honest look at the incredible hidden economics of the digital world helpful, and if it gave you a better understanding of how the modern internet was actually truly built behind the scenes, please do me a massive favor and hit that like button right now. It really helps this channel grow and lets the automated algorithm know that these honest, thoughtful, historical conversations really deeply matter to people like you. Share this video with a friend who loves history or economics, or maybe someone who just wants to genuinely understand how the modern financial world actually operates. We are going to keep looking deeply into the fascinating hidden stories behind money technology and how they constantly secretly affect our daily lives. And I absolutely cannot wait to share the next interesting historical chapter with you. Until next time, remember to always take care of yourselves and definitely take care of each other. Stay curious, ask really good questions, and always firmly remember that the true history of global wealth is almost never exactly what the massive corporations want you to believe. Thank you so much for spending your valuable time with me today, and I will absolutely see you in the next video.